Good morning. Or for those of you who are not morning people, morning. Welcome to the annual Collegiate Recovery Scholarship Breakfast. We'd like to start off by thanking the sponsors who make this morning possible. That would be people like Jeff and Teresa Lucas, the Joint Chiropractic, Willing Way and Twin Lakes Recovery Centers, the L'Italian family, the Berman Center, Cumberland Heights, Tom O'Brien, and our lovely alumni donors. We'd also like to thank our friends and partners at the Georgia Council on Substance Abuse, the Georgia Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities. And finally, we literally couldn't be here at Kennesaw State University today without the support of Kennesaw State University and the Division of Student Affairs, whose dedication to supporting students both in and out of the classroom is what brings us here. So, my name is Jessica Mcdaniel. I am the Interim Assistant Director at the Center for Young Adult Addiction and Recovery. On behalf of the center, I would like to say thank you all for being here. I'd also like to ask our staff to stand up for a second while you're eating. Enjoy that. Okay. Our new Collegiate Recovery Program Manager, Sam Rathbon. The Alcohol and Other Drug Prevention Education Coordinator, Lindsay Montgomery. We also have Jeff Earle, our Addiction and Recovery Clinical Specialist. And of course, our Executive Director and the Assistant Vice President of Student Affairs, Teresa Wren Johnston. In addition to our dedicated staff, we have a host of student assistants, graduate assistants, interns who help us support our students and for the continued growth and success of our center. Our purpose today is to celebrate our scholarship recipients as well as the wonderful community that makes our work possible. I would now like to introduce Kennesaw State University's interim president, Dr. Kat Schwag. Dr. Schwag has been serving as interim president of Kennesaw State University since July 1st, 2021. Immediately prior to this role, she served as the university's provost and senior vice president for academic affairs. Dr. Schwag has dedicated her career to supporting student success, working diligently to ensure students' progression toward their academic and career goals. As interim president, she has continued to support and encourage innovation and passion across our growing university. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Schwag.
Thank you so much, Jessica. I don't know about you, but even though it is a rainy Monday morning, this is a pretty good way to start our week. So I'm really grateful to be here and excited to be here, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to this year's Collegiate Recovery Scholarship Breakfast. I also want to extend my sincere thanks to all the staff members who were just recognized, Teresa, to your team for the work that you do. This is work that's done day in and day out, and day in and day out, and so we're grateful, very, very grateful. We have many external guests that are with us today. There are also many familiar faces, those of you who have been here year after year and have offered invaluable support to our recovery program and in turn have helped to provide students in recovery with a pathway to earning their college degree. KSU's Collegiate Recovery Program is one of the most premier in the country and is housed within our nationally recognized Center for Young Adult Addiction and Recovery, which serves as a critical resource not only for our campus, but also for our entire community. Its high level of impact is due in no small part to the encouragement and assistance we continue to receive from our local, state, and federal partners. We are fortunate to have some of those individuals with us here today, including State Representative Katie Dempsey. We would also like to recognize Will Anderson from the office of Congressman Barry Loudermilk. Jordan Watson from the office of Georgia Attorney General Chris Carr. and Ashley Fielding and Michael Polachek, who both serve with the Georgia Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities. We are very grateful to each of you and for your different efforts at the state as well as at the federal levels. I also want to recognize Andre Schnabel and Denny Marcus, who are here, and Andre and Denny co-chair our campaign for student affairs, and we're very grateful. Please. Founded in 2007, the Center for Young Adult Addiction and Recovery provides a comprehensive framework for alcohol and other drug education research and recovery science and recovery support to any student here at KSU. Through the Collegiate Recovery Program, the center delivers comprehensive, peer-based academic and recovery support to students in recovery from addictive disorders. In keeping with our focus on students, the Center for Young Adults Addiction and Recovery uses evidence-based practices to support the recruitment, retention, progression, and graduation of its participants. These tailored support services yield exceptional results, including higher GPAs and retention and progression rates among program members. For the 2020 and 2021 academic year, students within the Center for Young Adult Addiction and Recovery retained an average cumulative GPA of 3.21. 2/3 of those 82 students maintained or improved their GPAs, and 18 have already reached their graduation goals. Of those 18 graduates, 11 finished with honors. I think that's worthy of applause. When students first join the center, many have lower GPAs due to previous academic disruptions. So these numbers speak volumes and represent the hard work and tenacity these students put forth each day. Not only do they dedicate themselves to finding success in the classroom, but they also display an unwavering commitment to their recovery and wellness journey. Post-grad surveys responses demonstrate that long-term stable recovery remains a centerpiece for 92% of the former Collegiate Recovery Program students. Former students have also shared that the program specifically helped them to prepare for both their professional and personal lives post-graduation. With the recent partnership established between the Center for Young Adult Addiction and Recovery and the Department of Psychological Sciences and the Radau College, the center is positioned to continue its contributions to the emerging field of recovery science while also helping to advance our university-wide research mission. The heart of the Center for Young Adult Addiction and Recovery is student success and well-being. Through the variety of opportunities provided by the center, our students are connected with the resources that they need to learn and grow toward their personal and professional ambitions. To our scholarship recipients that are here today, please know how proud we are of you, how proud each one of us is of you, and how we look forward to your future success and your future goals as graduates of KSU. Thank you.
So it is now my great pleasure to invite up our keynote speaker today. This particular person, I am fairly confident that pretty much everyone in the room knows. She came to Kennesaw State University and started the Collegiate Recovery Program 14 years ago and continues to show us the way forward, continues to be a leader in the field, continues to inspire the students who she gets to work with. She, I know, played a pivotal part in my life, both personally and professionally. And with that, I give you Teresa Wren Johnston.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us here this morning. It's hard to believe, I think this is our 12th scholarship breakfast, so we continue to grow and then shrink down depending on the environments that we're in, but I definitely appreciate you all showing up with us today. I want to give a real special thanks to Jessica Mcdaniel and Lindsay Montgomery, if you would mind standing up. So we have had a little bit of turnover in the center recently, and we have promoted Jessica to the interim assistant director, and I don't think she knew what was coming when we actually, she was thrilled at the idea, but the work has been tremendous. And for Lindsay Montgomery as well, who has taken on a great deal of the responsibility for organizing this scholarship breakfast. Our office manager, who had been with us for many years, I think it was 6 years, and had always handled most of this work, left us just briefly before the scholarship breakfast. So thank you, Jessica, and thank you, Lindsay, so much for everything you've done. I also want to recognize our board members who are here today. As I call your name, if you're here, would you mind standing up? Michelle Knowles. Patrick Mohan, Bridget Montefiore, Tom Mishaw, Amy Coonan Taylor, Lem Ward, Justine Welsh, and Kurt Allen. I know they are not here. These board members help us make lots of decisions together. We meet with them 4 times a year and certainly involve them in a lot of the details. Oh, excuse me, did I not read Michael Polachek's name? Michael Polachek. You'll hear more from him later. Michael Polachek. So they are really instrumental in helping us do a lot of the hard work that we do, make decisions and guide us and give us feedback. So we really appreciate them serving with us. 16 years ago, I decided to make a change in my professional career. I had been working in corporate America, volunteering at my church, and a recent demand for my opinion on the subject of recovery and addiction had me talking to and helping people who were impacted by the disease. As I began to research ways to become more educated in supporting others, I decided to apply for my master's in professional counseling. At that time, I requested my transcripts from Michigan State University, where I had graduated with a BA in humanities. A few weeks later, as I opened the hard copy of the transcripts that were mailed to me, I was confronted with the train wreck that was my academic career. The transcripts read like a bad novel, revealing a young student struggling to succeed in higher education. It revealed a disjointed attempt to pull together a major, a goal-oriented plan to graduate, and any indication that I was a highly intelligent person. The withdrawal fails, the C's, the D's, and the F's, sprinkled in with an occasional A or B, were framed in geographical changes and transfers from one university to another. It was enough to make any admissions counselor reject my application. As I sat there looking at my transcripts, trying to remember how I could have failed so miserably at my academic goals, graduating with a 2.0, and I actually think they kind of pushed me out the door, it touched my heart as I imagined how invisible I was at Michigan State University. As I thought about my own 4 children, and how much I love and have hope for them, I was deeply saddened for my younger self and the loss of the potential at the time. The transcript was not only an indication of my academic failures, but it was also a roadmap to the trained eye. One only needed the key. The shape of stress, distress, social, environment, and physical challenges were all laid out in chronological progression. The documentation of my permanent academic record, indicating courses taken, grades received, degrees conferred to me, with the final award culminating in an alcohol use disorder. How does it happen when a young adult enters college with so much promise and so much hope and barely makes it out of college with a 2.0 GPA? You see, addiction is a brain disease expressed as a compulsive behavior. It is continued misuse of drugs and processes despite the negative consequences, with a chronic, potentially relapsing component. It is a disease that affects the very processing, decisioning, guiding organ that runs our life. Let me say that again. It is a disease that affects the very processing, decision-guiding organ, AKA the brain, that runs our lives. Asking a student who is suffering from an alcohol use disorder, an eating disorder, or an opiate use disorder to make changes on their own, to just stop, or to even consider stopping affects the deepest portion of the brain and kicks in the instinctual response to protect that disease. It is a disease that chases itself. Because the brain is so chemically affected by the disease, the very patterns and functions of the brains are changed. Each of us starts at the same place when it comes to the progressive development of addiction. What puts us at risk is unique to most of us. We all start here, in the space of a take it or leave it attitude towards alcohol or substances. There is no dependence, tolerance isn't an issue, and we aren't drinking to get drunk. But with the beginning of the use of alcohol, so begins our social use. Social use puts us at risk of increased use and subtle shift into a place where we begin to anticipate the use of our substances or the behavior. Here we increase the frequency and the quantity of our use. Perhaps add other substances such as cannabis, and enabling begins at this stage. In this space, we might see a group of friends drinking too much, getting sick, and helping a friend by holding back his or her hair as they vomit over the toilet. And little is said about the experience, and so enabling begins. Use of substances is not part of a good time, but is now the root to a good time. We used to anticipate having dinner at the Mexican restaurant, eating our favorite meal, and now we anticipate the margaritas. It's a subtle shift. We used to like to go to football games. Now we anticipate the pregame. Abstract reasoning begins to diminish, and we see the effects in problem solving and grades. If changes are not made, likely progression to the next step is seen. In this phase, we talk about peer pressure and the narrowing of our peer groups. With increased use of substances and processes, we make a subtle shift into another phase where preoccupation is evident, the psychological phase. Psychological dependence pushes us to rely emotionally on a substance or a process. Many of us have multiple tools in our resiliency toolbox. When we are anxious, sad, angry, or feeling an intense emotion, most of us are able to work through those feelings by working out, doing yoga, talking to friends. We aren't driven to take a shot or smoke a joint. In this phase, we see the development of the changing the way we feel quickly with a substance and pain avoidance. We begin to see preoccupation with the use of substances, increased social dependence, and the need for lifestyle changes in order to suit patterns of use. For example, I change my academic schedule to later in the day because I no longer can make an 8 a.m. class, which interferes with my late nights. Higher tolerance drives progression towards the disease. Students who commend themselves on the ability to drink others under the table, for example, should be concerned with their rising tolerance, not see this as a badge of courage. We see withdrawal in this phase, hangovers, emotional impact, restlessness, irritability, discontentedness. We see more accidents, life-threatening circumstances, and DUIs. In this phase, the attitude is relational and begins to replace other relationships. We develop a relationship with our process or our substance. For example, there is a well-known book in the community called Letters to Ed. Ed standing for an eating disorder. In this book, the author is literally writing to her eating disorder in a way that is relational, trying to break up with her eating disorder. We also see this phase in marketing and advertising for alcohol on TV and in ads. For example, stay home with Captain Morgan tonight. You don't need a date. In this phase, 50% who progress to the psychological phase return to the first phase with effort. Some people return to low-risk use. Some abstain and make changes. No one stays in this level. They have to make intentional changes. 50% of this group advance to the physiological stage. The physiological stage looks like all the prior phases with the addition of loss of control. For those who try to control their use, control is temporary. They need help with tolerance, psychological dependence, and social dependence, and this stage is irreversible. We cannot return to the start. Typically, abstinence is the only low-risk choice. Some people go directly to the phase as the development of addiction due to highly engineered and overprescribed pharmaceuticals. The opiate epidemic is an example of this direct physiological impact. And the impact of a genetic predisposition, a family history of addiction, is particularly impactful in this phase. One of the reasons that the medical profession should always inquire as to our addiction recovery history when we are investigating family history. Research indicates that people with a genetic predisposition are 40% more likely to develop this disease than those who do not have a genetic predisposition. Another physiological factor contributing to the impact is first age of use. Because the brain is not fully myelinated, in other words, not fully protected, until 25 years of age, the collegiate and young adult population is at risk, and at greater risk than many others. And finally, spirituality. In the spirituality phase, we find ourselves with the disease with behavioral symptoms. Here's where stigma lies. The misunderstanding driven by the disease, we become morally bankrupt, hopeless, isolated, and often incarcerated. We are looked at as people who are thieves, people who are making bad moral choices, and yet our disease has behavioral symptoms. Recovery-informed support services as intervention in college is critical when you understand the development of the disease of addiction. When Sue, not her real name, walked into my office when Sue walked into our office after we had established the center early in the first 6 months, I was sitting in the office and she came in and sat in a chair and started to cry. She told me that she was dependent on heroin and had been for years. She was struggling in school, working part-time, and stealing in order to support her habit. She was exhausted. We helped Sue find treatment off campus, and were here for her when she returned 6 months later. She joined the community, stayed sober, and graduated from KSU with a 4.0. She applied to and was accepted into UGA's veterinarian program. With a letter of recommendation from her drug court advocate, UGA accepted Sue, although she had a felony on her record. While we do not forget the past, nor do we avoid the consequences of the behavioral symptoms, no one should have to give up an education because of their past addiction. When the community members and I finally arrived at the door of the KSU president and cabinet at the time, we were greeted with encouragement and excitement about the idea of bringing a collegiate program to Kennesaw State University. Implementing the Collegiate Recovery Program has led to the strategic growth and implementation of the Center for Young Adult Addiction and Recovery, where we now provide alcohol and other drug prevention and education from a recovery-informed lens. We provide clinical and case management intervention for students seeking help. We provide the collegiate recovery community and program to support the social changes that students have made and the additional academic supports they need upon returning to the campus and dealing with the wreckage of our past. Finally, we now enjoy a collaborative relationship with the academic side of the house and working with the research office. Faculty from the social sciences are now employed as principal investigator, Dr. Erica Holliday. And when I think of Sue's story, I think about the parents who assumed Sue was well, living on campus and doing the academic work to succeed. I wonder what it would have been like at Michigan State University all those years ago if an outpost of hope, which is what I like to call Kennesaw State's program, like the retention, progression, and graduation cohort here at KSU, the collegiate program, were available to me. I wonder what it would be like for my parents to send me off to school having little idea about the impact of the social behavior and how it would affect my life. How could they know which one of their 5 children would become an alcoholic? You couldn't tell by looking at them. And as they said goodbye to me in the steps of Holden Hall at Michigan State, did they know that I would not only graduate with a degree, I would also graduate with an alcohol use disorder? Parents entrust their students to us. We are responsible for the entire student. The marriage of academic affairs with the expertise of staff in student affairs offers us, even begs us, to find ways to continue to be creative, innovative, and collaborative as we continue to receive future students. Thank you.
So we get to move on to the fun part of today. Sorry, we're catching up. I get the joy now to moderate a panel of a couple of our students and a couple of our alumni. And so if I could have our student and alumni panelists come on up. So I'm going to let them each introduce themselves to you, but I'm going to ask Amy to get us started off.
Okay. Hi, I'm Amy Coonan Taylor. I am a board member and CRC alum, having graduated from KSU in 2015. Since then, I have been able to, first and foremost, maintain my sobriety, coming up on 9 years. Thank you. I came to the CRC after 5.5 years at the University of Kansas without even being close to a degree, thinking that was normal. My parents had no idea how bad my addiction truly was until I was able to get honest, which is something that I learned a lot about at the CRC. I went to treatment December of 2012 into February of 2013, and then decided to enroll in KSU because of the support of the CRC. I was really nervous. I was really embarrassed. I really cared about what people thought. But I remember when I walked through those doors and it was, this small room with a bunch of beanbags and weirdos, some of who are here today. I was immediately home and really happy to be there. And I think that one of the best things for me that I remember of my time in the CRC was when we used to have like our scheduled meeting times for AA meetings or ED meetings or whatever it was, and it was also during a professor's office hours, and I was able to get honest with my professor, tell them that I needed that hour, and he was able to accommodate me for the semester and not make me feel any sort of shame or stigma or anything about it. Since I graduated, I am the marketing, media, and content manager for Rubicon. We are a sustainability tech company trying to end waste, and I also host their podcasts for millennials who want to do better for the planet but don't know where to start. I have a wonderful husband who I actually met in recovery. We have a 14-month-old daughter with a son on the way, and those are just some of the gifts that I truly believe have come out of my time at the CRC. So I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Bree, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Bree Mcdonald. I'm a senior at the Kennesaw State University, and I'm from Lithonia, Georgia, which is East Atlanta. I started my college career at the University of West Georgia, where I kind of got into my addiction really heavy. And I literally slammed into a wall, and I consider that to be the start of my recovery journey. I went to treatment, stayed there, and found out about the collegiate recovery community through an intern that graduated from the University of Georgia. She told me about the CRC. She told me how she had heard about it through a friend of hers. And I didn't know that I would want to go back to school because I had, ceased going to school at the University of West Georgia. And so it just kind of made sense for me to finish what I started, but then also have the support of recovery and what I had found. And so August 2019, I started at the Kennesaw State and was able to live in sober living, which helped me kind of transition from, my treatment center to college. Since then, the community at Kennesaw has really been the foundation of my college career here. And, I don't think that I could do it without this community. I just want to thank everyone sitting out. And, yeah.
Hey, Ziggy.
Hey, what's up?
Hey.
I'm Ziggy. I'm currently a senior at Kennesaw State University. I'm studying psychology and statistics. It's an honor to be here today. It's an honor to sit in front of you all and represent our community. I never thought I would have the ability to be back at a school. I attended the College of William & Mary in, I can't remember the year now. But it didn't go well. That's the important part. I amazed my college counselor at the time. I finished my first semester and left halfway through my second with a 0.2 GPA, which is impressive, I was told, and did not believe I had any hope of ever being a successful student. After entering recovery and moving to Georgia, I found out about the center, and I found out about the work, and I was able to come back, and I'm looking at grad schools, and I have a future in a place where I'm interested in and passionate about, and I know I can enact change, and it's an honor to be here because I know I wouldn't be where I am without the center.
And that leaves Michael.
Good morning, everyone. Michael Polachek, very glad to be here. Privileged to share this panel with everyone here. Happy Recovery Month to everyone in the room. If you don't know, September is Recovery Month. No bias here. I think this is one of the premier events in the state. So thank you, Kennesaw State, for your leadership in putting this on in the center. Congratulations for another year. I'm a proud alum of this program. Also, it's a boy.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Congrats.
Thanks, buddy.
I am a proud alum in this program, a former staffer, and now I get to be on the board, and it's a true privilege. I'm humbled by the opportunity every day to engage with this program. In the fall of 2009, I was a freshman here at Kennesaw State, and my life started to spiral out of control. That's when you guys asked me politely to depart the dorms as one of the consequences of my addiction. And one of the other consequences was Teresa Johnston was leading a class on alcohol and drug prevention for those who have consequences on campus. So that was my first engagement with Teresa. 6 months later, fortunately, I was able to find some treatment. And fast forward a year, I enrolled at Kennesaw State. After that, I pursued a career in the recovery space, and they hired me, which was amazing. I was coming in with like a 2.0 GPA, and they asked me to be their academic advisor for students in recovery. I was like, well, I have experience of what not to do for folks, so I can share that. But the whole journey, so June 20th of 2010 is my sobriety date. I'm grateful for that. Today I have the privilege of working with the Georgia Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities as Director of Legislative Affairs. I get to work with some real champions at the state capitol, one of them being Representative Dempsey. I always wondered who to thank in the state for all the great support services that the state offers, the recovery community organizations, the state detox facilities that I know I had to refer a lot of students to when I was here. And she is one of the champions. She is the champion for behavioral health and addiction in the state. So thank you for being here. It's good to see you. Yeah, let's get this panel rocking. I'll stop talking. Thank you.
So I'm going to start this first question off with Bree, and I'm going to ask, how has your recovery journey impacted your sense of purpose in life?
So I've been thinking about that question, and it's a huge question because I think about recovery and what that means to me. So recovery has been a gentle taker and a heavy giver. And what I mean by that is, like, recovery has taken all the things away that I couldn't take away myself. Obviously the using, the habits, the fear, the shame, things like that, but it's given me so much. It's given me relationships back. It's given me the opportunity to have a purpose, to see a purpose. It's given me my family. Like, it's given me love, the ability to receive love. And through recovery, like, I have life. So that's how I answer that question. Like, recovery is everything to me today, because without it, I wouldn't be sitting here.
Awesome. Thank you. And Michael, I know obviously your first step in your career after graduation brought you to the CYAAR, but can you talk a little bit about how being a part of the Collegiate Recovery Program prepared you for your professional life?
Sure, thanks, great question. I was in desperate need of community. I was lost, and I really needed, I had history here, not great history. I had a lot of anxiety coming back to this campus, saw a lot of my old acquaintances around campus, and it was triggering for a while, and I had some bad history. There would be no reason for me to come back here if it wasn't for this community. And the power in community for individuals in recovery is beyond anything else, right? I've been on teams, I've been in clubs I never attended meetings for, I've been in, you name it. The power of community for individuals in recovery is unlike any other, because my life depends on it. And the connections I make in programs like this, in church basements, is really powerful, and it's the difference between life or death for me, and I need it, and I need you guys, and that's what attracted me back to KSU. That's what kept me here, and that's what I decided to then pursue and want to stay here afterwards. I didn't want to leave, so community is my answer to that.
And so on a similar note, Amy, what would you say is the most valuable lesson that you took from the Collegiate Recovery Program?
So I do want to give like a major shout out to rehab. I think rehab is fantastic for getting you sober, but the CRC taught me how to live sober, right? Like, I'm there every day trying to go to school. And that was a big thing for me, was I had this mindset, which quickly shifted once I became a part of the community that Michael was talking about. I'm gonna call you Czech, sorry, that Czech was talking about. I had this preconceived notion, like, I did 5.5 years of college, college meaning the partying and the lying to my parents, like all of that. I am now here for school. And that was wrong because college is community. And I think the biggest lesson that I learned in my time at KSU is about timelines and shattering all of those preconceived notions, everything I thought about timelines. I thought that I had to graduate in X amount of time. I was embarrassed that I was the oldest person in some of my classes. You know, on that first day where they're like, raise your hand, tell us your major, your age, and a fun fact. I'm like, I'm Amy, I'm a sophomore, and I'm almost 26, you know, like, and once I went into the CRC, he's older than me, and we're in here together, you know what I mean? Like, there are people in there on their own timelines, and no one cared. And that, to me, I was able to take that out of that small little room with beanbags and bring that into the larger community of Kennesaw State, and even more so into the larger, you know, Atlanta community that I live in. There is obviously a stigma around addiction. There is also a large stigma around addiction in the Jewish community. And I found a lot of Jewish recovery at Kennesaw State, something that I never thought that I was gonna find. Were a lot of more people who were like me and were able to kind of carry those messages about, you know, the timelines that and the boxes that we were put into as little kids, that we can kind of knock those down and do things at our own time, because if you're able to stay sober, you're gonna get there. It's gonna look different from everyone. My journey looks very different from Ziggy's and Bree's and Michael's, but we're all on a panel today, and our timelines all led us here. So by far, the biggest lesson I learned was to kind of shatter those preconceived notions of timelines, stop caring about what other people think. No one in college is thinking about you. Like, that was a harsh realization for me to learn. Like, no one cares that I'm the 25-year-old in their class, and that you can go to school, like, you don't have to party, but you also don't just have to keep your head down in the books. You can make real friends, real community, and have a real successful college experience.
Thank you, Amy. Ziggy, you've already touched on this next question in your intro, but I'm going to go ahead and ask you to talk a little bit more about whether college was always a plan for you, and really how the Collegiate Recovery Program factored into your decision to come to Kennesaw.
Absolutely. College was definitely a goal that I had when I was growing up, and my plan, I grew up in Kenya, in Nairobi, Kenya. I moved to the States when I was 18 with the sole purpose of coming to school in the States. There was a lot riding on that. There was, in the sense of members of my family and like hopes and dreams of getting a college education in the States. And when that didn't work out, I had no intention of going back to school. I didn't think it would be possible. The only reason I'm at KSU today is because of the CRC and because of the program here. I know I wouldn't have stayed and made it through college to where I am today if I hadn't had the support of the center throughout the entire experience. I just know that. I've had the ability to be called a student leader and serve leadership roles. I've served as the vice president and the president of student leadership at the CRC. I have, most importantly, also, when I first showed up, was given an in-state tuition waiver, which allowed me to attend the school, because any money that I had saved up for school was spent on treatments. I knew I'd be paying for school myself, and so scholarships and the in-state tuition waivers, and most importantly as well, the feeling of security that I felt when I walked through the doors for the first time, that I would be understood and I wouldn't be alone in my journey through school, is what allowed me to be able to thrive and succeed while I've been here.
Thank you. Bree, what's your 5-year plan?
Coming out.
So my 5-year plan, it looks like, so I'm expected to graduate in May next year. And so I plan to attend grad school here at Kennesaw State. So that's 2 years. And then after that, I'm hoping that through like hard work, the people that I meet along the way, I'll become a cardiac rehabilitation specialist in a hospital setting. I really want to work with those patients in particular because I think it's something that I can apply myself and help other people. You know, cardiovascular disease is very prevalent, and so I also think that there's something fascinating about the rehabilitation process. There's a proverb that says, above all else, guard your heart because everything flows from it. And so I believe that, you know, the heart is the source, you know, it's the source of our life. And so I believe that rehabilitation and cardiac is just it's a great combination. And I just like helping people through my experience. I think that it'll be good for me. So that's it.
Phenomenal. I'm actually going to just throw this question out here for anybody that wants to field it. I know that we've talked about community being a key part of recovery. Is there anything else that you would identify as being particularly beneficial for the recovery process?
I'll go. For me, humility and that I was taught from day one of my recovery journey. It's going to be really tough for me to try to figure this out on my own. If I don't have the capacity to ask for help and to remain teachable, it's going to be a long and difficult journey. So with the help of a lot of men in my recovery, that was taught to me. So that's my answer to that.
Honesty is a huge one. Even if I sit here like almost 9 years sober, all I want to do is lie to you and like make my story seem a lot more interesting than it is. But unfortunately, my husband and Teresa know the truth, so like they would call me out. You know, I can't really, but that's a thought that's literally sitting in my head right now. Is like lie. You know, make something up, make them laugh, entertain them, and that's kind of what's just floating in my head because I'm a drug addict. And the fact that I was able to say that out loud at a scholarship breakfast where I'm on a panel for being a professional is a major gift of recovery. Like for me, it really is. So I think humility and honesty kind of go hand in hand there. I was able to kind of humble myself and call myself out. Because I have some really good things up in here in my head, but they're not true, and they're not gonna help anybody today. So I think that that's a huge component for my recovery is keeping myself honest, even if it's not the most like entertaining thing to do at this breakfast.
I do also want to ask for anybody who's received a scholarship, what exactly does that do for your education, for your recovery? How does that impact your life?
I can say that the fact that someone would be willing to sponsor me is pretty incredible. To be in a place where you don't think you're ever going to have that opportunity, and to all of a sudden learn that like that's readily available based on the work and hard work of other people, and that there are people out there who care and empathize with your situation and see your potential when you don't, I think is huge. And that's just been continue to be demonstrated while I've been here. So it's been instrumental. It's been monumental. Yeah.
I'd like to add on that question. So the fact that people care enough to give, not even knowing me personally, it says a lot just about them and their character. It's a very generous thing, and for me, it's taken obviously a financial load off of my plate, but it's also like helped me to believe that people do care about me and they want me to succeed. And it could have been anyone who received the scholarship, but I think I speak for anyone who may be sitting here with the scholarship, you know, on their account, that, like, I appreciate you, and I appreciate that you believe in me enough to give to me, so, or us in general.
Excellent, excellent. I know I was also a scholarship recipient whenever I was a student in the CRP, and I completely understand exactly what y'all are talking about in terms of being trusted in that way. And so I kind of want to throw this over to our alumni panelists and ask, like, do you have any advice that you would give any of the current students?
Go, Amy.
Go, Michael. I wouldn't have stayed sober if it wasn't fun. You know, this is like a serious breakfast. We're talking about money and addiction, but let's not forget like what those day-to-day interactions look like in the CRC. They're so fun. You know, being able to have like gratitude meetings. That also sounds boring, but I promise it's fun. And, you know, when I was at Kansas, and even, you know, my first semester at KSU, my biggest goal when I was done with class for the day was like, get off campus as quick as I could. You know, I even used to park in teacher parking and rack up thousands of dollars of parking tickets at Kansas because I just wanted to have an easy out. And I remember that changed one night. It was 7:30 on like a Tuesday, and I'm sitting at a computer at the CRC laughing and doing my homework. And I remember being like, who is this person? And, you know, Erica Baldwin was there, and Jordan Dickerson and Lucian Smith, who were community members who both passed from their disease, were there. And my best friend Brian Werniker was there, who my daughter's named after, who also passed of this disease. You know, that community, that fun, is what kept me in the CRC, because it's one thing to get tutoring, it's one thing to get academic help, but if it's not fun and we're addicts and alcoholics, we're not gonna do it long term. And so I had to find the fun, and it was really easy to find because of the people that were in there. There was not, you know, a lot of activity that we were doing at the time. It really was just sitting around in this room, talking and sharing and not feeling alone, being honest, being humble, laughing, being inappropriate, making a lot of noise, having teachers have to come in and tell us to be quiet. And it felt like really, it felt like being at recess, like being on a playground, everything before my addiction, all of those good, happy childhood memories I was able to kind of pour into a college experience at Kennesaw. So my biggest piece of advice is, if you want to stick around, and I know that you do, you got to make it fun. You have to make it long term, and that means make your time in the CRC fun, make your recovery fun, because it's only going to get funner the longer you stay sober. So, your turn.
Okay. I echo all of that. Amy mentioned stigma earlier on, and that's where my mind went, to just, you know, highlight the importance that your recovery matters, and invites you to, you know, that you have the power, really, that you're empowered with your recovery, and you now are an invaluable member of society again, you know. And the journey is simple, it's not always easy. And I think when we move on from college and we go our, you know, different ways, different industries, different workplaces, our personal experience and the vulnerability of that can have a really large influence on society and our peers. Whether that's small or large, our recovery has ripple effects, you know. So in my daily life, what is my role in, you know, progressing the stigma of addiction? And I invite everyone who's in recovery here, or someone who, I mean, everyone's touched by addiction in this room, I imagine. You wouldn't be here otherwise. I invite you to destigmatize vulnerability in your daily life, you know, and in your interpersonal relationships on a daily life. Like, we have a purpose, and that's one way that, with the blessing of recovery that we've been gifted, we really have a role in society now, again, and a greater purpose. So that's my response to that. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. And so for our current students, now, you're not super likely to convince anybody in this room to come back to college. Most of them are already either here or they've been here. But we are in a room of people who have the opportunity at times to talk to some prospective students. And so for our current students, can you maybe share a little bit of what you would say to somebody who's considering coming to Kennesaw State?
In recovery or not in recovery?
Either.
Just, okay.
I'll go if you don't.
Okay, go for it.
Go for it. I brag and tell everyone to come to KSU. Like, I do that all the time, constantly. If I'm in a meeting, if I'm talking to someone who's in recovery and is terrified of school, like, I can do that now. I think it's amazing and insane that there was such a nonchalant way of the way I heard about the CRC, and the center was, I was in a meeting and I was talking to someone about how I was terrified and I really wanted to go back to school, and I didn't know what to do, and I would have to move back to Virginia, and there was so much fear around that, and the person just looked at me and said, "Why aren't you going to KSU?" Like, it was that easy. And I walked into the center, and it feels, I could tell. You can tell when you walk into the place that you're going to be safe there, that you're going to be understood, that people are going to be able to relate to you. I could tell that the moment I walked in, the moment I had one conversation with Jessica Medovich. So at this point, I just kind of do the same thing. I tell everyone about it, and I'm a huge advocate for going back to school, even in recovery. It is such a terrifying thing, and the fact that we are so privileged and honored to be able to have a program like this exist is pretty amazing. To have a school that backs it so much is incredible. So yeah, that's what I do. Is I just tell people to come. I give people, other people's numbers. I tell them who to talk to, and the crazy thing is that people, the staff here always answer the phone. They go the extra mile. Teresa's done that 1,000 times. All of you have, so yeah.
I'd like to answer that real quick. So I'd like to say that I just enjoy the fact, so I had a cousin that was considering college, and he had a choice, and Kennesaw was one of the choices. And so I just really kind of emphasize the fact that, like, KSU has so many opportunities and so many different ways to be involved as a student, and I enjoy the fact that, like, Kennesaw puts students first, and I really believe that. I go into offices, and most of the time I'll see students first, and so I just enjoy the fact that there's so much to get involved in at Kennesaw, and it's really about we foster learning and just like academics, and also incorporate fun into that. So I just go Owls. I love it.
Thank you. And then to wrap us up, will each of you share what the greatest thing recovery has given you?
Start down there.
All right, we're going to start with Bree.
Okay. The first thing that came in my head was freedom of choice. I have a choice today to choose, what I put in and what I give out, and that's mine.
I think I have a life. At the end of the day, that's what it's done. I know I wouldn't be here if I wasn't sober. Not just in this room, but I know that. So it's given me a beautiful life.
It's given me
4 minutes
I'm-
to take the entire
No,
answer.
mine's like a sentence too, sorry. You have 3 minutes and 58 seconds, 1 second. the power to be okay. Like, I'm okay being Amy. I don't really, I'm lying. I care what you think, but in a different way than I used to. I'm okay. Everything that's bad's not that bad. Everything that's good's not that great. I'm okay. And I think that was a really tough lesson to learn, because all I wanted to ever do is be okay, and I thought it would take a million different routes to get there. But I'm able to be present. I'm able to be mindful. And, I do think major gifts of recovery come in the form of relationships and connection and role models, Teresa being one of those for me. My husband, who gave me the permission to blow his anonymity and say he's also in recovery, is a big one for me, and all my friends. I mean, we are living proof of really strong people. When Teresa was talking during her keynote, I was smiling because I know Sue, and I know Sue well, and it's very cool to hear everybody's stories and see where we all end up and that we're all okay.
Good answers. So there's two pieces for me. The miracle is the mental obsession has been lifted, right? For me, that means I can go throughout the day without thinking about drugs or alcohol. That's the greatest miracle, because then now I can function and I can be present and grow, right? And spiritually grow and learn how to be a fundamental citizen of society again. The greatest gift, I think, for me is purpose. And also my family. I met my wife at a Collegiate Recovery Conference 5 years ago. Atlanta hosted a national conference. She was a student at Oregon State, and we met, and 5 weeks ago we celebrated the birth of our first child. And that's a result of collegiate recovery for me and the recovery journey. So now my purpose, I look at it, right? I look at the purpose of the future. It's more than just me. It's about, and devoting my career to ensuring that folks like my daughter also has opportunities for a second chance, and maybe a third, fourth, and fifth chance. If she happens to fall down this path, that programs like this exist, and miracles like this are attainable, for her as well. So because of recovery, I now have a greater purpose, and that is invaluable. There's no price you can put on that. So, and Sue said she will attend this breakfast. She just has to pay off some debt first. But she'll be back
She will
soon.
be back.
Yeah, but yeah, thank you.
Thank you to each of our panelists for your willingness. I think this might have died. So we're just going to be really loud right now. Thank you to each of our panelists.
Thank you,
for your
Jessica.
willingness to
Great
share.
job.
Thank you, Jessica.
Sorry. Yeah, this one's definitely not working. So, it is now my pleasure to invite the student president of our Collegiate Recovery Communities Student Leadership Group, Patrick Mahone, up here.
Mic check, mic check. Whoa, that reverb. So, let me see, hold on, sorry. There we go. Good morning, guys. So, yeah, my name is Patrick Mahone. I'm a person in recovery. I just celebrated 8 years of sobriety last Thursday. Yeah, this, when I think about this last year, can you guys hear this okay? It sounded like really wonky. So, is that better? That's way better. Okay. I'm used to holding the mic like up here. Yeah, okay, so, yeah, this last year has been pretty incredible, A lot of change. I became a father last August, and I went back to school this past spring, January. It was the first time back at a major university since 2011, so 10 years, with a 6-month-old son, and working. And so, you know, I had this misconception that it was going to be easy, you know. I decided to switch my major to computer science, and, you know, so I'm taking calculus, I'm taking 2 programming classes, never programmed anything before, never calculated anything before. I'm a dad now, dude. I got the dad jokes. And I'm nervous, so I gotta, you know. But so I thought it was gonna be easy. You know, I thought it was just gonna be like a good time. Like calculus is gonna be a good time. You know, programming will be a good time. And it was really difficult, you know. And so I was asked to give a little testimony about what the CRC has done for me. And it's already been touched on by pretty much everybody on the panel so far. But, you know, there's a couple parts to it for me. The first was when I started back school, it was very stressful, and just managing the time of everything was hard. And so we would meet weekly in a seminar that Teresa would lead, and what I got from that seminar was a sense of connection, a sense that people are going through the same thing that I'm going through and understand me, and also that, you know, they have my back, you know. And I feel like I could learn to rely on these people, and it really kind of encompasses my recovery journey in its entirety, because, you know, when I got sober, I didn't trust anybody. I didn't trust myself. I didn't believe that I could recover. I thought that I had no idea what I was getting into 8 years ago, and it was the people that I was surrounded by that really believed in me when I couldn't believe in me. And so I feel like I'm kind of relearning this lesson again, you know, and it's been presenting itself throughout my recovery journey, where I do something new, like I've never been the president of anything before. This is the best shirt I got, you know, and it's like, it's a good shirt, but it's not presidential. Like, that's what I tell myself. Seriously though, that's what I tell myself. I'm like, I'm not a president. I'm not the guy, you know? And Ziggy's over there like, you are. And honestly, like, that's what the CRC is. It's like I'm relearning this lesson again, that, like, not only am I enough, not only is everybody in this room enough, but we're great in our own way, you know? And yeah, oof, getting chills from that. Yeah, it's a really powerful thing, you know, to be able to just have people around me that believe in me, you know, and to be able to show up today and say it's not really about me, you know, because that's the gift that recovery's given me today, is that, you know, it's not about me unless I make it. You know, I have the opportunity to help somebody, to be of service, to share a part of myself, you know, to walk through that fear, whatever that may be, and hopefully impact somebody in a positive way, and to be a dad too, and come up here and rip some corny jokes. And so I really appreciate this opportunity to be up here today. And let's see what the prompt says here. That was the intro. Patrick spends a couple minutes introducing himself and talking about what the center. Check. So the ability to provide financial support to students in recovery is made possible by our endowed scholarships, which I will now read. The Allen Family Scholarship in memory of Laura Bradfield. The Baldwin Paulson Collegiate Recovery Community Scholarship. The Christopher J. Simcoe Memorial Scholarship. The Scott E. Duffy Scholarship. The William and Betsy Duffy Scholarship. The Mandy Krasner Memorial Scholarship. The Jeremy Leo L'Italian, is that right? That's right. L'Italian Scholarship, the Lucas Family Scholarship, and the Center for Young Adult Addiction and Recovery Board Scholarship. We would also like to thank Gene and Jeff Schultz for their contribution to scholarships, as well as our awesome alumni who have been stepping up and giving back. Thank you to everyone who makes these scholarships possible. And here are our 2021 scholarship recipients. If all of our recipients could please stand as I introduce each one of you. First, we have Frankie Berryman. Cassie Bramblett. Isabella Herrera. John House. Ziggy Kolker. Me. Tina Martello. Bree Mcdonald. Phoebe Sanders. Stephanie Shope. Charlie Spradley. Tony Stanley. Keaton Tobin. Kevin Wakefield. Timothy Williams. Congratulations to all of the fellow scholarship recipients. Thank you for allowing me to come up here and share part of myself today, and really appreciate everyone involved with the scholarships themselves. Yeah, receiving a scholarship like that, it was helpful financially, and it was also, like it was shared in the panel, I felt like somebody believed in me. So, thank you.
Tall people, man. All right, so it is actually my honor to welcome up this last couple as we get ready to close out. So, you know, they've been highly engaged with one of our sister departments, Care Services, which is a department in the Division of Student Affairs that supports students with housing insecurity, food insecurity, students who are coming out of foster care. Really fantastic program, and I promise I will connect this to why we're here today. But Denny Marcus and Andre Schnabel have been a part of supporting that program for a while, and that program really is top-notch, you know. And so they've agreed to come here today as the co-chairs for KSU's Student Affairs Comprehensive Campaign. They'll tell you more about what that campaign's about, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about them. Denny's passion is education. Her first career focused on teaching students who learn differently. From an early age, she learned that it's important to give back, and she began volunteering with underserved kids when she was a teenager. Andre decided to get involved with KSU when, as managing partner of an Atlanta accounting and consulting firm, he began to realize that the KSU graduates performed above expectations. Today, he serves on the KSU Foundation Board of Trustees as chair of the Finance Committee and treasurer of the foundation. Andre's involvement at KSU led he and Denny to Care Services about 5 years ago. I've already explained a little bit about what CARE does, but they've generously supported CARE's mission with their time and philanthropy. And Denny serves as CARE's advisory board chair. Both Andre and Denny said they have enjoyed their association with CARE and are excited about the student success that can be achieved if SIAR, that's the Center for Young Adult Addiction and Recovery, CARE, and the Military and Veteran Services programs are strongly funded. So with that, I give you Andre Schnabel and Denny Marcus.
Good morning. Good morning. Well, Wow, what a program. I'm sort of in shock. I want to thank all of our speakers, but in particular, the panelists were just really memorable. This, for me, I probably speak for both of us, was truly a memorable breakfast, and I'm a lot smarter than I was an hour ago, and really thank all of you for providing a really bright light on the work of the center, its impact, its challenges, and its celebrations. I'm going to speak just for a moment about what the campaign is all about. Ultimately, it's about making sure that there is more and more resources so we can give away more and more scholarships to people like yourselves who need the support and who really not only appreciate the support, but these are really high impact dollars. The stories that we heard this morning were high impact stories, and I, for one, really feel that this is meaningful work. The comprehensive campaign, of which the student affairs component is a part, is a $125 million campaign over several years, I believe, Lance, through 2027. Lance, by the way, is our leader and doing a spectacular job in pushing this campaign forward. We are in the midst of the campaign, and for student affairs, our piece of the action is $7 million, a big number. So to the extent that we in this room can push us closer and closer to that goal, that would be awesome. And I believe that at the on the pamphlets on your tables, there is a, what's the acronym for that black and white square? QR code. Okay, use your QR code well. And one of the things that really strikes me is that Kennesaw's success also provides us with a challenge. We have somewhat grown faster and more successfully than most of our peers, and as a result, the endowment size at KSU is an absolute fraction per student compared to some of our competitors just up the road. UGA, for example, is one allowed to mention the name of a competing institution in this room? Per student has 25 times the endowment dollars that we have. And we've got to close that gap because those dollars creates student success, improves our graduation rates, and Kat was talking a little earlier about the impact of the center on graduation rates. So let's give. You want to add anything?
I'll let Andre do our talking. Thanks for coming. It was a great breakfast, and we will leave with lots of inspiration from everything that was said.
Thank you.